Cue Dave and Ryan in 3, 2, 1.
It's Dave and Ryan's movie review.
So joining us today over the telephone, we've got Heather Langenkamp, of course, played Nancy in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and they are actually celebrating the 40th anniversary of that movie. So she was nice enough to join us over the phone, and we wanted to take a few moments and just spend some time talking to her about that and maybe, find out what she's doing now, okay? So, Heather, it's great that you're on the phone. We're very appreciative that you took out the time to talk to us today.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be with you.
So we're just going to start, and we'll just jump right into the interview if that works for you.
Yeah.
Hey, Heather, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a big horror movie fan, but, I'm a big film buff. I do all of our video work here and stuff. So I'm going to ask you some more kind of like the technical and type of questions. But I think the first thing everyone wants to know is kind of the audition process that you went through to get this, because this was one of your very first roles. You were in The Outsiders in a deleted scene, but this is one of your main roles. So what was that kind of like with the audition process?
Yeah, I had just moved to Los Angeles maybe a year earlier to, try to make it in Hollywood like so many people do. I luckily had my SAG card because I had got that on the set of the Rumblefish, which was shot in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So at least I had my SAG card, and I had done a couple of commercials, and I had done a very, very low budget independent movie called Nickel Mountain, and I'd done like a movie of the week. So I wasn't a complete newbie, but I was just eager to go on auditions at the time. However, when I got the audition for a horror movie, I really hadn't even really seen any horror movies. Maybe I remember seeing one called Burnt Offerings with Karen Black when I was in 6th grade, but I wasn't a big fan of horror myself. And so, I didn't really know what I was getting into. The audition was pretty easy. The part Nancy was very similar to who I was. She was, very, she was just a sweet, kind of studious person, and she wasn't, too crazy, and that's kind of how I was. I was always, never too wild as a teenager. I really related to her part, and I had one callback, and at that callback, Wes Craven was there. I met him. I'd heard all these crazy things about him because he had done some very, very controversial, pretty raw horror movies.
Yeah.
And though his reputation was like this kind of crazy madman, but then when I met him, he had been a college English professor, and he looked the part. He wore a tie, he wore khaki pants and button-down shirts. I mean, he was a very straight-laced looking person, very conservative looking person, and so it was hard to reconcile the two stories that I had learned about Wes Craven. And of course, he was a gentle, very nice person, excellent sense of humor, very, very smart person, and so I felt really lucky to be in his movie. Though almost everybody that I knew said it was going to be a huge mistake, and I was going to regret it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, one of the things that I really liked about the movie was it wasn't like any of the other horror movies that were out at the time, where the big bad guy chases you and the girl's running, she falls down over absolutely nothing, and the bad guy just walks up. I liked how the lead, your character, she wasn't this basically the damsel in distress.
I think it was important to Wes Craven to portray this young woman with a little bit more strength and not, like so clumsy. His own daughter was a teenager, or maybe she was only like 9 or 10 when we made this film. And it was really important for him to provide a role model to her of this girl that was really, able to take care of herself and really try to save her friends. So I credit Jessica Craven, who was his daughter, for being his inspiration for making this strong female character. When you have kids, you are extra careful about what kind of messages you send them, and Wes was no different than all of us.
Yeah, and I know there was a few. You guys shot a bunch of different endings to this one. Was there one that was like more your favorite, or is the one that they went with the one you liked?
Well, I wasn't really that familiar with the idea of the sequel, and I don't know if I really understood the idea of letting Freddy live to fight another day, or kill another day. I really was hoping that Nancy was going to wake up and she had really vanquished him, and that she was really, really victorious in that final scene where she's fighting Freddy. I really wanted that to be the ending. Of course, the producer had something else in mind because he was a businessman and he realized what a great character Freddy Krueger was, and that he had a lot of potential to make another movie. And so we worked on that other ending where, Freddy kind of comes to us in the form of that really cool red and green Cadillac. So it was there were a lot of different endings because I think nobody was quite sure how they wanted to end it. And working with Wes Craven later on, in Wes Craven's new Nightmare, we also shot a lot of different kinds of endings. I don't think Wes himself was sure of what the best ending was going to be.
Okay, yeah, and my last question is, I know you guys were kind of doing a lot of new film techniques when you guys were filming, so with the spinning room. For people who like Inception, Nightmare on Elm Street did it first with the spinning room where you're basically walking up the wall. That was just amazing to me growing up when I watched it. What was kind of I guess my question is, filming that kind of stuff, were you guys kind of excited, or was it kind of like everyone's coming up with different film ideas, or kind of like I guess, I'm not sure how to word this, Dave, the adventurous side of filmmaking? Were you guys a part of that, or were you just
kind of show up on set and they just do what they tell you? That kind of thing? Is that
yeah.
Like, we had a really, really just brilliant special effects department headed by Jim Doyle, and he came up with all of these incredible ideas. The scene where Freddy reaches out over me while I'm sleeping through the ceiling, that they literally, the morning we were supposed to shoot that, they come up with this idea of stretching spandex across that wide span to make it look like a ceiling, and then it allowed Robert Englund to kind of press himself through the spandex. That was just an idea that people were trying new things all the time. Some of the effects at the time I didn't think looked that great. The scene where Freddy Krueger is going down the alleyway and his arms are really long and his fingernails are scraping against the fence. I didn't think in person that looked that great, but apparently it's some people's very, very favorite scene. The rotating rooms were amazing. I mean, of course, very few people had ever had the experience of working in that setting. My scenes never were in the rotating room, but both Johnny Depp and Amanda Wyss, they both got to do those scenes in with the rotating room. And in fact, I mean, there were mishaps. The scene with Johnny Depp falling into the bed and then the blood coming out of the bed, they actually rotated the room the wrong way. And so what's supposed to happen was that all the blood was supposed to drip down over the walls and it was going to be really gory. But instead, by turning the room the wrong way, all the blood went out the open hole and there was no blood dripping down the wall. So Wes Craven ended up putting a sound of wind, like the demon wind or something coming through the room and blowing all the blood away. So he had to improvise. There was only one take, and he, in the editing room, decided to stick with it and make it as scary as he could without all the really gross dripping blood. The scene was really fantastic, and it's one of my favorite scenes. But, don't feel bad that you don't love horror. I always say, America is a divided country. You either love horror or you don't. And now that we're having the 40th anniversary of Nightmare on Elm Street, what I realize is that there's a lot of opportunities out there for people to see it on the big screen. There's some cities and towns that are getting the new print from, and showing it on big screens all over, or drive-ins. And it's just such a great way to see the movie. It is beautiful to watch. And you can always hide behind your fingers if there's a scene that's too scary.
Yeah, I know there is one thing I really like is the practical effects used in the movie. And I know you and your husband have a practical effects studio, and that's something that me and Dave has actually talked a lot about on our show. So could you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you guys worked on?
Oh, I'd love to. So, yeah, I married a special makeup effects artist. His dad, and before him, had been one as well. His dad did he did Captain EO and a lot of great movies like The Crow and Serpent and the Rainbow. And then my husband went into that business as well, followed his dad's footsteps. And so I kind of married into this crazy family where they were always talking about the best kind of blood to use for a certain scene, or the best kind of blood that, drips down, the mouth perfectly, or, there was always conversations about the makeup effects they were doing.
Yeah.
And my husband actually proposed to me on the set of Pet Sematary, which is a movie by Mary Lambert that was written by Stephen King. And so, I've kind of had that in my life for a very long time. And then when I had kids, I decided to join my husband in his company and just help him out. I do a lot of the work that he doesn't want to do, like, keep track of all the payroll and pay the taxes on time and all that kind of stuff. But it has allowed us to do a lot of movies together and be together more than a lot of couples who work in Hollywood, where you're always traveling. And some of our most notable movies, we did Dawn of the Dead, that Zack Snyder directed. We did Cabin in the Woods, which is a really fun horror movie. We've done Cinderella Man for Ron Howard.
Nice.
Star Trek Into Darkness for J.J. Abrams. So we worked on a lot of big problems, and then we did projects, and then we also worked for 5 years on American Horror Story for Ryan Murphy, and that was a really challenging and really fun job. We got to make those characters like Twisty the Clown, and just a lot of those really memorable characters that are in Ryan Murphy's TV show.
Well, Heather, we've got just a couple more questions for you really quick before we let you go. And you've brought it up, you've talked about them a little bit, but what was it like really working on set with Wes Craven? Is he kind of an actor's director, or is he more of a technical guy and we've got to do it this way?
I think actors to him were really kind of, he was just really glad that he didn't have to give a lot of direction. He knew exactly what he wanted the scenes to look like. I think he was maybe more technical in that the mood and the look and the kind of atmosphere of every scene was really important to him. But I always felt that he trusted his actors to kind of bring their best work to the set every day. And he would often compliment us like, boy, I'm so glad that you're doing such a great job, because he didn't really know how to suggest things. I think he was really glad that Robert Englund and Amanda Wyss and Johnny Depp, we all just kind of brought things to our part that, when you study acting, you try to come with your own ideas every day. And if the director doesn't like them, then you have discussions. But I felt like he cast people who are really perfect for the roles that we played. He didn't have to intervene that much in how we played scenes. I felt he was very hands-off in some ways, but the way that he set us up in these situations and the blocking that he created for us to do really made the movie really it's very elegant and very simple. I mean, there's just a lot of simplicity to it that I think it benefits the movie a lot. It's not too complicated.
All right, and I've got one last question before we let you go. And, yes, we talked about the fact that this is the 40th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I know speculation is always difficult. But, when you guys were doing this, when the movie came out, when it started to hit theaters and things like that, did you think it would grow into what it has become?
Well, my roommate at the time dragged me to the local kind of, corner store and said, look, your movie, it made $4 million last month. And, I hadn't really even been following it. And I didn't know if that was a lot of money or a little bit of money. I just didn't know anything. And I thought, oh, that's great. Like, a lot of people got to see it as a theater. None of us could have known that the VCR was going to be invented, a year or two later. None of us could have known that the digital world would be able to play a movie for you at, just at a whim on your telephone in front of your face. Like, all of this high-tech world that we live in has actually allowed a movie like Nightmare on Elm Street to become so popular and Freddy to become a cultural icon, because we in 1984 just couldn't see the future at all. I just thought, oh, they might play it at a midnight, movie on TV. Maybe I can see it then. I didn't really know where I was going to go see it again. After my first time seeing it in the movie theater, I didn't feel like, unless it was on TV, and I doubted it would ever be on TV because it was so violent, I didn't really know how I was going to get to see Nightmare on Elm Street. And so, now we're, 40 years later, the world has changed so much. I mean, it's just, everything is so different. And there's no way I could have ever foreseen this kind of popularity.
Heather Langenkamp, the Nancy, the star. We're going to call you the star of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us today. We really do appreciate it. And 40th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Heather, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure, and best wishes to everyone when the holiday weekend is coming up, and I hope to talk to you again soon.